Hello, everybody. My name is Phillipe Cantin, and I'm going to talk to you about the Agile Contract puzzle today. Just going to switch screen here so I can control my presentation. Here we go. So I'm a lean agile coach at CGI, and I have a whole bunch of subjects that are my passions. Some is estimation, decision making, and team dynamics. But today I'm going to talk to you about a new quest I had in the last couple of years, which is Agile Contracts. So today I propose to you that by only aligning the perception of value and risk, and also by agreeing on common understanding of when development will stop, you can actually create the right contractual conditions so that you can sustain or even encourage agility. So how did that start? So in 2019, I had two things that happened at the same time, which started me into the Agile contract path. One thing is that I had a team that they had a problem with trying to figure out priorities in their backlog. So the PO was from the client. It was his business, their business, and so he was trying to prioritize by value and trying to follow all the variability of his business. But the development team was a contracted development team. Their priorities were completely different. They were trying to serve the contracts parameters that they had. At the same time, my boss was asking us, all the coaches, to find anything we had on Agile contracting. And so I was curious. I started reading the material we had, and I found out that it was still in its infancy. And but at the same time, there was something there, and I was wondering if is there a link between the two. So of course, since I had so much free time, I started a quest on the side on that. So I started reading a whole bunch of papers and reading about contract theory and stuff. But my line of inquiry was basically, can a contract-based relationship prevent agile interactions? And the idea was like, if I'm lucky, I can measure it and even maybe prevent it. So literature-wise, contract theory is based on concepts like moral hazard and adverse selection. This sounds very weird, but we'll kind of explain that in a second. It's based basically on something called information asymmetry, which fundamentally is about opposing interests, where you have two participants or, two parties that have opposing interests. And when you look at what's going on in a team that is separated by a contract, you do get symptoms of moral hazard and adverse selection. How does that work? What is that stuff? The base example to try to describe information asymmetry is a restaurant scenario. So you're a business owner. You have a restaurant, but you want to create a new product, which is like a buffet. Okay, so you never had a buffet, so you want to do that. So you look at the type of clients you have and kind of money you can make by opening a buffet, and you make your plan accordingly based on what you know. The problem is that there's information asymmetry there. And what it does is it creates a moral hazard scenario for your customers, because it's in their best interest, to use your system, and maybe they're going to eat more than they normally do. Okay, maybe they're going to try stuff and not finish it, and you didn't have that problem before, but you can't really control that, and you couldn't prevent that from happening because you didn't know that they were going to react that way. So they're doing stuff which creates a moral hazard, and it's putting the risk on you. They might not do that by accidentally, but definitely they might not do that voluntarily, by the way. On the other side, from the business person point of view, the person that designs the plan, there's a problem of adverse selection, where because you don't have all the information, you create a plan based on the normal distribution of the clients that you know. And the problem is that your clients are going to behave differently, and you're going to attract new clients. So basically, that selection of clients that you think you're going to have is shifted. So that's the adverse selection. If we bring that into software development, let's look at a PO and a dev team. It's the same thing. Okay, the developers have actions that are hidden because they're unknown to you. You don't have their expertise. You cannot look at everything they're doing and their decision making. So, in a sense, if they want to avoid all risk, they can avoid all risk by rearranging their action. They can also give you all kind of conservative estimates and stuff like that, which in event in the end is going to touch the priorities and stuff. For on your side, you were trying to, as a PO or as a manager, you were trying to create some kind of contract or an agreement with that team so that you can get them to work for you. But the thing is, maybe you're attracting not the type of developers that you wanted to attract with your contract, maybe because the contract is basically luring in a different type of profile. And also then you have the problem of their estimation not matching what you wanted. So basically you have this thing where you thought you were going to have a development team of type A, but the selection is shifted and you have a development team that reacts like a type B, whatever that is. So the two participants in this relationship is the principal, which is the person trying to create the context. It could be anything. It could be a contractual context. It could be just simple agreement. You could be a manager in a department, but your dev team is going to be from the other department. Let's say, you're the business side, so you're going to have the PO from the business side, but you can have the development team from the IT side, and you can have the exact same problems. Okay, the agent on the other side, they have the hidden action thing where they know that they can impact the results just by shifting their actions. So, you look at that, and I was looking at that and I was like, oh, yeah, right. We know how to solve all this. It's all agile stuff, So why don't they have the PO set the priorities right? Why don't they have a clearer contract, or a clearer backlog? Why don't they adjust, the shifting priorities and all that through their daily meetings and better backlog maintenance? Okay. The problem is that I looked at that and said I could have stopped there and say, cool, more props for us, coaches and people that are doing agile transformation. That's just arguments for us. The thing is, this stuff is hard. So you can tell people, do agile gestures and things like that. It just doesn't mean that they're going to be agile. So even though, and I've seen contracts that says you will do Scrum, you will have the PO, you will listen to the PO, or the PO is going to set priorities. But in the end, if people are not behaving in an agile way, we have huge issues. So, because yet again, I had so much time on my end, I dove into an even deeper hole, and I looked at this like from a hacker point of view, not from a coach or a transformational coach, which is my daily job, but from like a hacker point of view. So I looked at the whole system. So the whole system that surrounds the backlog, the team, the PO, the clients, contractor, and all that. And I looked at all the moving parts and stuff. And the hacker would look at that and say, okay, where's the soft spots? Where are the vulnerability in this system where I could move little bits here and there and trigger behavior without changing the whole system. So my approach, I called hacking points, or finding hacking points. And there's two types that I found. There's the generic ones, which are, I was trying to find stuff that is systematically in every possible relationship scenarios. And the other category was like agile specific, like what's the minimum type of hacking point that I would want to touch to trigger the right behavior. So the first four, which are the generic one, is that everybody has some kind of list of remaining work. Okay, so you list that in Agile. We call it the backlog. In the traditional setting, it could be whatever. It's your work, the work to be done. Everybody has some sort of way to put value on those things and to also have risk on those things. Even though you might not do value-based prioritization or risk management, proper risk management, everybody has some sense of what those things are, and they're going to give you arguments of like, oh, this is more riskier than that one, or this has more value for me than that one. So everybody has some concept of that kind. And the last one is everybody does some form of prioritization. So even though you might not prioritize everything, if I give you 2 jobs and I say, which one do you want to do first? People will pick something. So if we look at that, the first one is super easy to fix. Let's all work in a single work list. Okay, so one backlog to rule them all. So that's an easy one. The last one, prioritization, if you think of it, I won't go into all the details, but basically that's fundamentally based on the other two, which is value and risk. Okay, so we can put that one aside and just think about value and risk. So if we align value and we align risk, we are going to remove this information asymmetry. So to simplify things even further, we can say that risk can systematically be defined by value. So if you dig a little bit deeper and you look at all your risk, there's a way to define risk based on value. How much will that cost? Things like that. So basically now we only have one thing to align, which is value. So I'll go, when I show you the guidelines, I'll show you one way to align value. So that's the first guideline, let's align value. Second hacking point was an agile one, is that in agility, we have a lot of flexibility in the backlog. We want to have different pivot points. We want to be able to change our mind and switch the path in our backlog whenever it's valuable. We also want to be able to decide when to end development for a certain subject. So let's say that we're working on deliverable A, B, and C, and A has delivered its value. I want to switch to B. So I want to be able to stop development of A. And another one is we want to be able to tweak the plan based on the flow or the throughput. Sorry, the throughput or the velocity. Okay. So for that, we want to be able to align end conditions. So there's ways also that I'm going to present to align that and solve that second part, which is aligning end conditions. So it's all good, but if you don't measure that, you won't even know if it's working. So the one thing that I'm measuring in this is the value. So how do we look at the value alignment? We look at this in the backlog. And the two things that I measure is the value of each single items in the backlog and the backlog as a whole. So for a single item, I look at the relative size for the same item. So if I have one item and let's say that the principal say it has a value of X, but the agent, which is a dev team, says no, it's 10 times, it's 10X. Maybe that crosses a threshold that I don't want. I want them to have a certain relative size estimate. Another thing I can calculate is the value swing. So the first one I call value factor. The second one I call item value swing, and it's the percentage of value based on the total value of a backlog. So for one single item, maybe I have a threshold and I say that one single item, if it's not valued the same, maybe at 20%, I want to raise a flag. I say that's too much, we have to talk about that item. And the last one is the total value swing. So if you take the aggregate of all the value swing for items, maybe there's a max value swing that you're ready to accept for your entire backlog. Okay, so those are the three things that we use. So there you can have the PDF. Don't panic. But I'm not going to go through details here. But how do I measure that? Is I have basically the two parties measure or distribute value in the backlog. So once that's done, then I can start doing comparison. So the first thing is I calculate a ratio between the two estimations, and from that I can calculate all the other three values for my metrics. Well, let's look at what the end results. What are those principles? The Agile Contract principles. I have basically there's only three things for the value and risk. Is that all the known work must be in the same backlog. Duh, everybody wants to do that, but it's fundamental. The second one is all risk is defined as value. So that way we can concentrate our alignment only on value, okay? And it gives us a single economic language to describe all value. So it's super important. And the third one is that you distribute the agent's payout, okay, according to the principal payout. So only one distribution of value. So you don't have items that are valuable for one but not valuable for the other. Distribute the value the same way. So every time the principal is cashing in, the agent is also cashing in. So that's to align value and risk. The second part of the Agile Contract principle is aligning the end conditions. So that one you basically use the concept of partnership. So as long as you have a queue of work that enables you to gives you options about what the team can work on next, you will have enough flexibility to say, okay, let's stop working on work of type A and let's start working on work of type B. And the next part is the fixed capacity. So you want to make sure that the agent is fixing the capacity so that things can be predictable. And when we look at metrics, the throughput metrics, we can do projections, and it's not going to go up and down and and throw out all of our plans. Last part for the Agile Contract principle is measuring. So the backlog asymmetry measure. So these are purely examples. You can adjust this to your tolerances, but how much of a backlog value swing are you ready to accept? How much of a single item value swing are you ready to accept? And then also how much of a value factor, how the ratio between two estimates are you ready to accept? Those are going to trigger red lights, which is going to help you decide, if you have to have a discussion about certain items or the whole backlog. Application-wise, right now at CGI, we've designed 2 products that are using that. There's the Flow as a Service, which is a safe train, a remote safe train. So we have a whole bunch of things to be able to do that. But there's some of the principles of Agile Contract is used in that. And it's the same thing with our self-managed pods, which are our self-contained remote teams. It's using those concepts. Future work-wise, I'm still working on that. I'm not an expert at contracts. I'm still reading a whole bunch. And if you are interested in that too, I have a whole bunch of ideas for projects and things to implement this. I'm already using it, as I said. And so if you think that your environment is suitable for that, I would like to work with you for experiments or case studies or anything. I could help you implement those principles. So that's it. I'm going to check the questions. Sorry, it was like super fast, but 20 minutes. Definition of risk and value opens a lot of potential for different interpretation. Yeah, so I mean, this was defined really, really fast. 20 minutes, I can go into the details, but definitely you have to have a very clear the definition of risk and value so that the conversation can be super transparent. Basically value has to be defined for, like, there's a single definition of value and everybody adheres to it, which is totally feasible. Any other question? I know it's already 2:20.
The 2 minutes left because we started a little bit late. Okay. 2 minutes left. Any other question?
Yeah, any other question? You can. I'm going to check the chat, the main chat, if there's questions there. If not, you can. I'm going to be at the CGI table, is that it, in the Salon des Partenaires. Exactly. So if you want to talk further, because I know I went like Mac hate. So if you have any further discussion, you want to talk about this, you can contact me on LinkedIn. Or you can come chat with me in Salon des Partenaires. And my PDF for this talk is also going to be available, I think, through Agile Montreal.
Yeah, we will post it on the archive section of the Agile Tour Montreal.
Okay.
Once we get all the